You ever get sucked into those national elections? Like, glued to the news, arguing with your friends, practically losing sleep over who's going to be president?
Oh, yeah, totally.
But then,
Like a sport.
it is. But then someone asks, like, so who's running for your school board? And you're like, crickets.
Yeah, it's like we hyper focus on the big stuff way out there, federal level, but the things right in front of us affecting us every day, we kind of just tune it out.
Totally. And that's a problem. So
Mhm.
today we're diving into why that is. We found some really interesting research and articles on this whole thing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic.
Like a recent Gallup poll found that 67% of Americans trust their local governments.
67% compared to, what was it, 32% who said they trust the federal legislative branch.
It was. That's a huge gap.
It is massive. It makes you wonder, right?
It really does. So why the disconnect? If we trust local government more, why are so few of us actually, involved with it? I mean, one article, it's by Jory Pepper Communications, it said there was this local election where only it is 4.98% of registered voters actually voted.
Wow, that's incredibly low.
Right. And we're not even talking about some random dog catcher position here. This
Yeah.
is school board, planning board, the people who decide what happens to your local park, all that.
Yeah, it's the folks who make the decisions that really impact your day-to-day life.
Exactly.
So it is interesting that so few people participate, but before we just call everyone apathetic, there could be other reasons, right?
Sure.
Some people might be genuinely confused by the whole thing, like how local elections even work, who's running, what these positions even do.
I mean, I get that. It's definitely not as in your face as the national stuff,
Right. It's not on the news 24/7. You're not bombarded with ads everywhere you go.
Exactly.
And sometimes, it can feel like a foregone conclusion, especially in those areas where one party is really dominant. People might think, what's the point? My vote won't change anything.
Right. I can see that.
Oh.
But
But there's a big but there.
there is.
Because whether you vote or not, those decisions, they're still happening.
Right. Exactly. They don't just go away because you ignore them.
And those decisions, they affect you, your community, your kids' schools, everything. It's all connected.
It's like that saying you can't complain about the potholes if you didn't vote for, whoever's in charge of fixing them.
Exactly. And it's not just potholes, it's bigger than that. Think about it, like that new development that popped up in your town. Maybe you love it, maybe you hate it. But either way, it started with decisions made by your local planning board, your zoning board.
Oh, those guys, I swear, nobody even knows they exist until there's like a bulldozer on their street.
Right. But those groups, they're not just some rubber stamp for whatever developers want. They have a huge say in how your entire community looks and feels.
It's true. It's like they decide what businesses can open, whether you could have a fence in your yard, even like what the signs look like, all that stuff.
It all comes back to local decisions, and those decisions have a long-lasting impact.
It's not just about one building. It's about the whole character of the place, right?
Exactly.
Wild. It's crazy, right? Like we drive by these places every day, but never really stop to think, how did this even get here?
Yeah, it's easy to just go about your day-to-day and not think about all the decisions that go into making a community look and feel a certain way.
But there were meetings and debates and votes all happening behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah, tons of stuff going on behind the curtain.
Which actually leads to something I was thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we actually realize, okay, maybe I should care about this stuff,
Yeah.
What can we actually do about it?
Well, the good news is there's a lot you can do besides just voting. Which, don't get me wrong, voting is still super important.
Right, of course.
But civic engagement, it's bigger than that. It's about being an active part of your community year-round.
So, like, don't just be a voter, be a citizen.
Exactly.
But what does that even look like, practically speaking?
Well, it can be something as simple as attending a town hall meeting, or even just checking out your local government's website, seeing what's on the agenda for the next one.
Oh, right. They usually have those online.
They do, and you might be surprised what you find. Are they talking about a new park, a zoning change? This stuff matters?
I'll be honest, those meetings can be kind of intimidating. Like, what if I don't know what I'm doing, The rules, all that.
I hear you. There's definitely a learning curve. But everyone starts somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most local governments, they want to make it easier for people to participate.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
They've got websites, info lines, staff members who can walk you through everything.
So no need to show up with, like, Robert's Rules of Order memorized.
Exactly. And honestly, just showing up, listening, that's a form of engagement too, It shows people are paying attention.
Like, attendance counts.
Exactly. But then if you really want your voice heard, you can always contact your elected officials directly.
Oh, right, like email them or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Email, phone calls, those still work. Even a good old-fashioned letter.
It's true. Getting a real letter, that's got to mean something.
Exactly. And remember, these are your representatives. They're supposed to be working for you.
They do have a tendency to forget that sometimes.
They do. So it's our job to remind them. If you're concerned about something, if you have an idea, let them know.
Don't just sit there stewing about it.
Exactly.
And you know what else is a super powerful form of civic engagement?
Let me guess. Writing a strongly worded letter to the editor.
Well, that's always an option.
Yeah.
But I was actually thinking about volunteering.
Ah, okay. Getting your hands dirty. I like it.
Right. And remember that Jory Pepper article we mentioned? They made this great point, like if you're unhappy with something, sometimes the best way to change it is to get directly involved.
Oh, absolutely. Be the change you want to see, right?
Exactly. Like worried about the lack of after-school programs, volunteer at the local YMCA, not happy with the state of your local park, join the Parks and Rec Committee, that kind of thing.
It's amazing how many people complain about things they could be actively working to solve.
So true. And the thing about volunteering, it's not just about checking off a box on your to-do list, It's about connecting with your community, understanding it better, and realizing you can actually make a difference.
Yeah, and you might even make some friends along the way.
Exactly.
It's about building those connections, fostering a sense of shared responsibility, creating a more vibrant community overall,
I like that.
Which actually kind of brings us back to that whole spheres of influence idea we were talking about earlier.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
How so? It's like those ripple effects,
Yeah.
Throw a pebble in the water, and those ripples just keep spreading out.
Oh, I like that analogy.
And so what you're saying is, if we want things to change at, like, the national level, maybe we need to get our own houses in order first.
Maybe. Just maybe.
Interesting.
Think about it. If we can't even get our own towns and cities working the way we want them to, how can we expect things to be any better at the state or national level,
Right, right.
It's like we're skipping steps.
Yeah, like trying to solve a complex equation without knowing basic algebra.
Exactly. And remember those low voter turnout numbers we were talking about?
Oh, yeah, scary low.
When only a small percentage of people are actually voting in local elections, it means those elected officials, they're only accountable to that small group.
Which is kind of terrifying when you really think about it.
It is. It creates this gap between the people in charge and the people they're supposed to be serving.
Right, they're representing us in theory, but if we don't actually, vote, then who are they really listening to?
Exactly. But when more people get involved locally, it changes things.
Like it holds their feet to the fire a bit more.
Exactly. It forces them to be more responsive, more transparent, more accountable to everyone, not just a select few.
It's about taking responsibility, I guess, for our own communities.
Absolutely.
Like this isn't just some abstract political system, It's our town, our schools, our parks.
Our streets, our libraries.
Yeah, all of it. We have a say in how it's all run.
We do. And that sense of ownership, that belief that we can actually make a difference where we live, that's where it all starts.
I love that. So it's not about ignoring the big picture stuff, right? It's just about realizing that real change, it often starts small.
Exactly. It starts with us, in our own backyards, so to speak.
I love it. So to our listeners, here's something to think about. What's one small step you can take today to get a little more involved in your own community?
That's a good question.
Maybe it's attending a town council meeting. Maybe it's volunteering at a local school. Or maybe it's just talking to your neighbor about something you care about.
Sometimes that's all it takes, that first step.
Exactly. Whatever it is, just remember, your voice matters, and even small actions can have a big impact.
Because the future really is local.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep those ripples spreading.
Absolutely. And remember, every voice makes a difference.